Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Tiffany, a retired librarian turned homeschool mom. And in this video, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to be covering a film called The 100-Foot Journey. What I'm not going to be covering is the book that goes with it. Partially because the book is it's not going to appeal to a lot of people. The film is very much a love story and an embracing of a young man both going through and conforming to his adopted culture and then embracing his own. The book is a love story to French cooking. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about what the book tells. The book tells the beginning of the story is very, very similar. You have a young man who's in India. His father starts up essentially creating a business, providing lunches to Indian businessmen, and then basically taking them lunches in these containers. It's common throughout India, and that's what he did, and eventually turned into a restaurant through their family history. I think his grandfather started this, and the main character, Hassan's grandmother, teaches him how to cook, not his mother. That's what the film does. And eventually what happens is they're Christian and they're living in Hindu-dominated India. And eventually their home is burned down. His mother, who was the accountant, dies in this fire. She's beaten up and she dies in the fire. They try to save her. And they go to stay with some of her family in England, which doesn't work out essentially because Hassan's female cousin seduces him. Not kidding. Yeah, she's been, I think whether she was born there or they've just been in the UK for a very long time. And she's pretty much become a kind of punky teenager, living on the other side of the tracks, very much having sex with people and smoking and hiding this from her family, who still thinks she's a pure little Indian girl. She's not. She seduces him. He's blamed. They leave and end up in France. And he eventually, they start up a restaurant of their own with him cooking across the street from this fancy French restaurant. And the woman next door is irritated. They have a bit of battle. She tries to sabotage them a little bit. But then she tries their food and she enjoys it, and she realizes that the son is a very good cook and she wants to teach him. She sees that he can do better, even from her little restaurant. And I do believe she does accidentally injure him with his hands, but it's very much an accident. And there's some battles with her own staff who don't realize that her intention is not for him to take over her restaurant. In fact, there's a fight at one point where she literally takes her head chef over and it's like, I'm turning the restaurant over to you, not him. He's gonna go off to Paris. And that's what he does. He goes off, leaves her restaurant, works for a variety of different people. His father eventually said, I'm gonna give you your inheritance now, and your sisters, who can become your accountant, because she's obviously not going to get married. And he opens up his own restaurant, and you follow the course of how difficult it is with some of the French laws dealing with a restaurant, partially some of their labor laws, which are really, really strict. It's hard to fire people. He goes through a thing where he has this guy who has references. He's great for the trial period, and then he becomes a douchebag. And you essentially... they fire him, and they end up having to pay out a bunch of money because essentially firing you because you're a douchebag is not up to par. And that's one of the ways and there's a lot of high taxes when it comes to these restaurants, so it's very difficult to stay open. And then it goes into one of his kind of mentors, one of his friends in the chef world, and does stress these Michelin stars. These Michelin stars are very important. They're prestigious. You're trying to get them. But one of his friends eventually commits suicide, and in his will, he wants Hassan to create this very French very traditionally French menu for a bunch of kind of famous chefs and various people who've critiqued things over time. It turns out this guy's own empire was falling apart. He's going to lose one of his Michelin stars. He was on television and things were falling apart. He was going baroque. And that's why he committed suicide. And the entire point of this was to showcase his friend Hassan and his traditional French cooking. And you have Hassan going to his restaurant saying, after this week, we're throwing everything out and we're going back to basics and doing traditional French cooking. He does eat his own Indian cooking, his own culture, but it's very much a love story to this food. And there is a woman he knows by Marie, who's from the village where he lives, who was working with the madame that trained him. And they kind of have a little bit of a flirtation and a little bit of a love affair, but he leaves and is essentially married to his work. She comes to him at the end looking for a job. He doesn't have any openings, but he makes a call for her. And she's a chef. She's a sous chef, and he gets her a job. And when he gets at the end of it, it ends with him getting this like fourth or fifth Michelin star. And she's over there with his sister, because he lives with his sister. Both of them never married, no interest in, and they're married to their work. And they're kind of friends, and they're congratulating him. And he's just kind of shocked because he doesn't understand. It's gotten to a point where it doesn't mean much of anything after his friend's death. And he's kind of going back to basics, kind of thing. That's the book. Again, it's very much focused on the French restaurant industry. The film is different. The beginning of the story is very kind of similar, though. It's his Hassan's mother who teaches him to cook, and you do kind of see her die in this fire. They don't explain why. They don't explain it's a religious thing. They also don't explain the other thing. Part of the book talks about Hassan's siblings. His sister, his father has a competition with his wealthier family, and his youngest daughter marries into it, and they open big fancy restaurants and hotels and things like that. One of his brothers becomes a lawyer. One of them opens his own, like, I think, car repair shops. They become wealthy, and the youngest brother is wandering around doing various things. I think he becomes some sort of journalist. But the film doesn't talk anything about really any of that. It very much focuses on this restaurant industry. In the film, it's a love story. You have Hassan, mother dies, she's the one who teaches him to cook. And they go to England. They kind of show him his relationship with the cousins, but they don't go into as much detail. And have them traveling and getting stuck in this town, which is similar to the book, and creating the restaurant. But it kind of tells the beginning of the book, and they had their restaurant, and he eventually transferred over to her restaurant. It also doesn't show the fact that his father dies choking on a chicken bone because he's been put on a diet by, I think, his second wife, or maybe one of his daughters. Yeah, that's how his dad dies. And then the madame actually does talk about her death. She fell downstairs and her going down the stairs into her restaurant. So, and she ends up dying. So by the end of this, both of his father and his female mentor are dead. But it shows very much the beginning of this. The film shows the beginning of the rivalry. It does imply more the madame's more attacking Hassan than it is in the book. But it also shows a love story between him and Marie. And that's what's not in the book at all. They have a little bit of a love affair, but it's over and done with, and he's married to his work. And at the end of this film, it has him realize that he needs to go back to his own basics of his own Indian cooking, because it kind of does a montage of him doing all sorts of creative things in Paris, and then he comes back and says, we're basically going to take over. Madame's going to give him her restaurant, and they're going to start their own and fresh kind of Indian cooking kind of thing. So that's the film. It's a love story. It very much focuses on embracing your culture, because in the film, particularly at the end, it seems like he's lost himself. And he finds an Indian restaurant and he remembers the flavors and he remembers home and he remembers family and he goes back to that, and that he's going to open a restaurant with her. He's in love with this girl and they're going to be restaurateurs together, and they're going to bring Michelin stars to Madame's restaurant, which I think is that's the ending of this film. And it's very heartwarming. And I enjoy this film. I saw this in theaters with a friend of mine before she moved away. And it's a very good film. I like food. I like cooking. I'm a big person I do a lot of cooking. We do not go out. We do not buy stuff. I enjoy being in my kitchen. And so that's why I love this film. That's the reason I'm covering it. If you're looking at Indian culture and Indian food and even French food and what it's like to have to adapt to a different culture and a different way of living, and very much this coming of age to an extent story, because he is mostly an adult during this, and returning to your roots and not forgetting who you are. That's the reason I'm covering this film, besides the fact that I actually enjoy it. It is definitely mostly family friendly. Let me see. I have the IMDb page pulled up here. Let me look at it. I do not believe it's 13. No, this is PG. So, it's good to show to your middle schoolers. Your younger kids might find interesting. It's very funny to watch. There's a bit of comedy between the Madame, who I believe, what is her name? Her full name. It's played by Helen Mirren, so it's Madame Mallory. So, and she's very much kind of the stuck-up kind of traditional French woman, and yet she's shocked that she enjoys this greasy, very spice-heavy Indian food. But she also sees that Hassan is an amazing cook, and he has amazing talents. And she wants to teach him, and she wants to see him grow, which is the same from the book to the film. But again, in the book, it's very much she wants him to come back. In the film, she wants him to come back. In the book, the restaurant is given to one of her people, who I'm trying to think of. Do they give the character's name here? Jean-Pierre, I believe. And so it's a different vibe between the book and the film. The film is fantastic. It's high energy. It's enjoyable. You get to see the chaos of the two different kitchens and how they fight for customers across this stretch of basically 100 feet, which just has something to do with the walls and the ordinances in the town, because Mallory definitely tries to get them shut down, and they debate with the mayor quite a bit. And this is a small little French provincial mountain town who's being brought large amounts of Indian food, and I believe they're by water, because I know they can get seafood. So it's a fun movie to watch, particularly from the sense of embracing food, and you have this message of embracing your culture and embracing who you are and adapting to a different world. That's why I love this film. It's fun. It's also really fast-paced. There's slow spots, but overall it's fun. There's a little bit of areas where Hassan, his hands get burned, but that's pretty much it. There's no real swearing. It's been a while since I've seen this. And you see his mother die, not graphically, obviously, but when he's when he's a teenager, and you see the gloominess of England and them kind of living in poverty there, and his father just kind of getting fed up, and they're right near an airport. So they go from being this wonderful life in bright, vibrant India to gray and brown and dirty, and then moving to this French town where you see life return. You do see one of the brothers working on cars a little bit. I don't remember you see much of the sisters, but they're obviously there. I think it shows that one of them is married. But they don't really get into the siblings quite as much. But it's enjoyable. There's a good back and forth between Helen Mirren and, I am going to mispronounce this guy's name, Om Pari, who I'm going to pull up on IMDb here really quickly because I'm pretty, he's an Indian actor who's known for both mainstream Indian films and art films. So he does both British and American films. So he's done a couple of things. I believe he's definitely from India. He's pretty active. He does a lot of stuff. I'm guessing there's a lot of Bollywood stuff that he does. But there's a huge playoff between him and Helen Mirren, who's a well-known British actress. And then her relationship with Hassan, who's the actor, is, I'm going to butcher these Indian names, Manish Dayal. Again, sorry for the mispronunciation. I do not know how to pronounce his name. Let's see. Okay, well, this is kind of funny. He's from South Carolina. He's definitely Indian, but yes, he's known for a couple of things. He does look like he's done a couple of things, but yes, he's definitely of Indian descent. He's from South Carolina in the U.S. So, which is kind of interesting. He's known for he was an actor and producer known for the 100-Foot Journey, which came out in 2014, and a couple of other things. So he's really, really good. You see his relationship with Mallory in this, as well as some of the other actors. It's an enjoyable film. So highly recommended if you're looking for food films and you're looking at kind of Indian culture films, because it shows a little bit of that. To recommend the book, it varies. It's very much, obviously there's a little bit more graphic. You see a lot more of the Indian culture and its contrast to French. So the first half is very much about Indian culture and the way they eat and the restaurant and how that works. And then it has that brief part of darkness in the UK and then France, where that goes through his training and definitely becomes a focus on traditional French food and the restaurant industry. So if you're interested in that, read that book. I own the ebook copy, which is why I know about it. I did kind of enjoy it, but it's something that I would not cover on its own just because it doesn't have a lot of educational merit, and it wouldn't be something I would recommend to anything younger than maybe teenagers, just because it's gonna drag. It's very particular. It goes into a lot of detail. Pull up the Wikipedia for it. Let me see if I can type one-handed here. Here, I'm gonna put this down real quick and type. I cannot spell. Here we go. 100-Foot Journey. There's the film. This should bring up my book as well. Let's see if I am going to see if it's going to be based on the book, because I know it's obviously based on the book. There we go. So, yeah. The film came out in 2008, and the book is set in the 90s. The film is more modern. So, let's see. Yeah, the story is about the 100-foot distance between a new Indian restaurant and traditional French. And basically, Hassan is the narrator and the protagonist of the film, of the book. It doesn't really go much into the book just because it's very, very different than the film. So, again, the film is a fantastic, fast-paced, little bit of a love story, focusing on Hassan's journey from being a young man, learning Indian cooking, learning traditional French cooking, going into experimental French cooking and the restaurant industry, and then coming into his own, joining with the young woman he loves, and combining the two in this small little French town. Why the book tells the story of a young man who's from a wealthy Christian Indian family who's through violence is forced out of their country, end up in a town opening a restaurant, and then learning to survive in the cutthroat restaurant industry of Paris, essentially, because that's where he has a restaurant. And that's the focus of the film. Again, the book. The book is a love story and an explanation of the difficulties of running and owning a restaurant in Paris. The film is more of this love story of growth and inspiration and becoming one with yourself. Why, again, that's not really the point of the film. Mind you, the Hassan at the end of the book very much comes to understand that the Michelin stars are not quite as important and that he needs to focus on his cooking and getting back to basics and doing what people enjoy and not going crazy, which is essentially what his friend had done. And then his friend's world kind of fell apart because he was so busy trying to chase these Michelin stars and fame that he forgot the core of what he was doing, which was cooking. So the film is kind of different. The film is more enjoyable. I do enjoy the book, but it's a specific taste. I'm really into cooking, and I have an interest in this, but it very much runs slow, which is the reason I'm not doing a video on its own, because as a modern book, I probably wouldn't recommend it to anybody who doesn't really like French cooking, isn't interested in the restaurant industry specifically, because that's really where this sits. The film is a family film. It has Helen Mirren. It's funny. It's entertaining. It's fast-paced. It has a good message. It's Hollywood trying to do Bollywood a little bit. So in France. So again, it's Helen Mirren, who's very, very British, doing French. But yes, everything is in English. Because again, I believe this is definitely an American film because it's partially produced by Oprah. I don't know why on earth Oprah would be interested in a story like this, but who knows? Oprah is weird. If you want to see my opinions on Oprah, please see my Color Purple reviews. The film reviews of that. Yeah, I don't like Oprah, but that's what this is. And the other, Spielberg's involved. Of course he is. Again, the Color Purple connection with Oprah and Spielberg. But again, this is a fun film. This is a fun, entertaining film that has some of the merit with the Indian cooking, but it's something to put in with your kids that's entertaining, that's fast-paced, that maybe you're studying Indian culture, maybe you're studying Indian food, and you want to take a break and do something fun. This is it. It's a rainy day. Throw something like this in. Again, I saw it in theaters with a friend of mine who unfortunately moved away. We've kind of lost touch. And we both really enjoyed it because it's fun and it's fast-paced and it tells this kind of amazing coming-of-age story. So that's it for this review. If you like what you see, I have a bunch of other reviews. Most of the time when I do the film book comparisons, there's 2 separate videos. That's what I do with The Color Purple. That was back. You can check that out. I think that's in my African American playlist. I did that. That should have come out back in February because African American History Month. And The Color Purple is a big thing. I do a lot of other stuff. A lot of times I do smaller children's picture books, a variety of other family films, a little bit of educational homeschooling resources. We are a secular homeschooling family, so that's one of my inspirations for my channel when we're focusing on doing things that inspire homeschooling and home education. I also do a little bit of travel stuff, and I have a bunch more planned. Check out my introduction if you want to see what's planned for this channel. Check out what I've got, and like and subscribe to see what I have to come. Thank you.